The day had started like any other. I was sitting at the small wooden table in my apartment, staring at the pile of rent bills and the dwindling balance in my bank account. The walls seemed to close in, silent witnesses to my stress. That's when I heard a soft knock at the door. It was him, my tenant, the one who had moved in just a few months ago, but somehow carried an air of confidence that made the room feel smaller, warmer, and more dangerous all at once. He smiled, leaning casually against the doorframe. "Hey," he said, voice smooth and easy. I nodded, unsure whether to smile back. He was here to talk about rent, of course, but there was something different in the way he looked at me today, something that made my heart skip even before the words came out. I was thinking, he began, shifting from one foot to another, maybe we can make this easier for both of us. He paused, letting the silence hang, heavy, almost teasing. I frowned. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice tighter than I intended. He stepped inside, brushing past me with casual familiarity, and the scent of his cologne filled the room. "I mean, maybe rent doesn't have to be just money," he said finally, his tone light but deliberate. My breath hitched, and I felt my stomach twist in ways I didn't expect. I had never imagined anyone would suggest something like this. Not in my apartment, not under my own roof. I, I don't understand. I managed, trying to keep my voice steady, though my pulse was racing. He chuckled softly, leaning against the wall with a lazy grace. "Let's just say there are other ways to settle a debt, ways that don't involve numbers on a page." My mind spun. I knew exactly what he meant, yet I couldn't believe he had said it aloud. There was a thrill, sharp and immediate, that ran through me, a mix of fear, curiosity, and something I hadn't felt in a long time. That I stepped back instinctively, crossing my arms over my chest. I, I can't," my words faltered. He tilted his head slightly, his eyes catching the light, warm and teasing. "You don't have to decide now," he said gently, though there was a confidence beneath it, a certainty that unnerved me. "Just think about it. Sometimes life gives you choices you didn't expect, and maybe that's not a bad thing." I nodded slowly, unsure if I was agreeing or just buying time to make sense of the suggestion. He smiled again, leaving a lingering look as he walked toward the door. "I'll be around," he said, voice low and casual, as if he hadn't just offered me something entirely unexpected. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving me alone with the hum of the refrigerator and the pounding of my own thoughts. I sank into the chair, my mind racing over every word, every glance, every subtle gesture. My moral compass argued loudly. This was wrong, I told myself. But beneath that, a part of me, an uncomfortably honest part, felt a rush of excitement. I had never been in this situation before, never faced a temptation that seemed to sneak in under the guise of necessity. The tension between us lingered in the air, invisible yet undeniable, like the shadow that stretched across my living room as the afternoon sun dipped lower. I found myself replaying our interaction over and over. The way he leaned casually, the way his voice had low, teasing tones that made my thoughts wander. I had tried to keep our relationship strictly professional, but that boundary seemed fragile now, easily shaken by his unexpected proposition. Could I? Should I? My mind refused to settle, caught between desire and reason, need and ethics. Night fell, and the apartment felt smaller, more intimate, almost like it was holding its breath with me. I stood by the window, looking out at the quiet street, my heart still racing. The offer lingered, unspoken yet powerful, filling the space between us with tension that I couldn't ignore. I didn't know what would happen next, or what I would do when he returned, but one thing was clear: nothing would be the same again. The next day, he appeared again, as if reading my thoughts. I was tidying up the small living room, trying to make sense of the knot in my stomach, when I heard the familiar knock at the door. My heart skipped, and I hesitated before opening it. He was standing there, hands in his pockets, that same calm confidence radiating from him. "Hey," he said softly, and just like that, the air between us seemed charged. I stepped aside to let him in, and we fell into an awkward silence, both aware of the unspoken tension. I busied myself with picking up a stray book, hoping that movement would ground me, while he leaned casually against the wall, watching me with those piercing eyes that seemed to see too much. "You've been thinking about what I said, haven't you?" His voice was low, teasing, almost intimate. I froze, caught off guard by his perception. I wanted to deny it, but the truth was undeniable. I had replayed that moment countless times, imagining the possibilities, the thrill, the forbiddenness of it. Maybe, I whispered, unsure if I was admitting curiosity or weakness. He took a step closer, the space between us shrinking in a way that made my pulse quicken. I could feel the warmth radiating from him, a subtle, magnetic force I couldn't ignore. "I'm not asking for your decision yet," he said, his voice softening. "I just want you to understand that sometimes there's more than one way to settle things. And sometimes the path we're not expecting can be the most memorable." He smiled, and it was almost a caress, a gentle push against the walls I had built around myself that we sat on the worn-out couch, a comfortable distance apart, but every small gesture carried weight. His hand brushed against mine as he reached for a mug, and a spark shot through me, startling in its intensity. I tried to look away, to focus on the mundane task of folding a blanket, but I couldn't escape the pull between us. "You seem conflicted," he observed quietly. I nodded, biting my lip, trying to organize my thoughts. Part of me felt guilty, ashamed even for considering what he suggested. But another part, a deeper, darker part, was drawn to the idea. The thrill of stepping into uncharted territory, the excitement of temptation. "I don't know if I should," I murmured, trailing off, unsure how to articulate the whirlwind of emotions inside me. He didn't push. He simply leaned back, relaxed, letting me unravel at my own pace. The patience in his presence was intoxicating, making my own restraint feel flimsy, fragile. That we talked for hours, though not about the obvious. We shared stories of our lives, brief glimpses into the person behind the exterior. Laughter bubbled up, soft and unexpected, breaking through the tension. Each word, each glance seemed to pull us closer, weaving a connection that was as unsettling as it was alluring. To a T1 point, our hands accidentally touched again, fingers brushing, lingering slightly longer than necessary. My chest tightened, my mind spinning, and I felt a warmth I hadn't expected. He noticed, of course, his smile teasing but unreadable. "See," he whispered, almost playfully. "Sometimes the simplest touch says more than 1,000 words." The afternoon faded into evening, and the city outside grew quiet. I sat there, feeling both exhilarated and conflicted, caught between the morality I had always clung to and the undeniable attraction that hummed between us. I knew the offer he made wasn't just about rent. It was about a connection, an intimacy that I hadn't realized I craved and now couldn't ignore. When he finally left, he gave me a small, lingering look that made my stomach twist in ways I didn't understand. I closed the door slowly, leaning against it, my mind racing over everything that had happened. Part of me wanted to deny it, to push away the feelings stirring inside, but the truth was clear. I had crossed a line, even if only in thought, and there was no going back to the life I had before. I sank onto the couch, staring at the dim light filtering through the curtains, feeling the echo of his presence linger like a whisper in the room. The tension, the desire, the forbidden thrill, it all mingled inside me, leaving me both terrified and longing. I didn't know what would happen next, or how far I would go, but one thing was certain. My world had shifted, and the quiet, ordinary rhythm of my life had been broken in the most extraordinary way. The next evening, I found myself waiting, though I wasn't entirely sure why. The anticipation gnawed at me, a strange mixture of fear and longing. When a knock finally came, I felt a jolt in my chest. He was there, leaning against the doorframe with that easy, confident smile, and I realized I'd been replaying this moment in my mind more times than I could count. "Hi," he said softly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. The room seemed smaller with him in it, charged with an energy I couldn't ignore. I swallowed hard, tried to steady my racing thoughts. He didn't speak for a long moment, just observed me with a quiet intensity that made my heart beat faster. Then he moved closer, almost imperceptibly, and the air between us seemed to hum. I wanted to step back, to assert some control over the situation, but every instinct in me told me to stay. The unspoken offer from days ago lingered, and now it felt real, tangible, like something I could almost reach out and touch. "You've been thinking a lot," he said, voice low and intimate. I nodded, words failing me. He reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from my face, and I felt a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the room's heater. My mind raced with questions, doubts, and desires, but there was no denying the pull between us. For a moment, we just stood there, the silence between us heavy and electric. Then he spoke again, softer this time. "You don't have to do anything you don't want, but sometimes it's okay to let yourself feel." His words were a gentle invitation, and despite every warning in my head, I found myself leaning slightly closer, drawn to him in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. The room seemed to shrink, the shadows stretching long across the walls as the city lights outside flickered. His presence filled the space, commanding and gentle all at once. I felt my defenses crumble, and I realized that curiosity had grown into something more potent, something that made the idea of walking away impossible. That we sat on the couch, a careful distance apart at first, each movement deliberate. He reached out, lightly touching my hand, and the spark that ignited was undeniable. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, intimate in a way that made me feel exposed and alive at the same time. My pulse raced. I could hear the rapid beat of my own heart, almost matching his calm, steady rhythm. Minutes stretched like hours as we explored this new closeness. A laugh escaped me, soft and unexpected, and he mirrored it, his smile warm and reassuring. Every glance, every subtle touch carried weight, building a connection that neither of us had fully acknowledged until now. I realized then that this wasn't just about the offer, about rent, or even about temptation. It was about discovering something about myself I hadn't allowed to exist before. As the night deepened, the city outside quieted, leaving only the soft hum of distant traffic and the subtle creak of the apartment settling. We leaned closer, almost instinctively, until the warmth between us was undeniable. I felt my mind and body responding in ways I had tried to ignore, and yet I didn't resist. The fear of what was happening mingled with an intoxicating thrill, a forbiddenness that made every heartbeat feel amplified. When it was over, we didn't speak immediately. The room held a silence filled with understanding, tension, and an unspoken promise. I leaned back against the cushions, feeling the echo of his presence in every corner, every shadow. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, guilt, excitement, confusion, but also a strange, undeniable satisfaction. He finally stood, adjusting his shirt and giving me a small, lingering look that carried a promise I couldn't yet define. "I should go," he said softly, and I nodded, words failing me. He walked to the door, leaving a quiet warmth lingering in the apartment, as if the space itself had been transformed. The door clicked shut behind him, and I sank into the couch, letting the quiet envelop me. I knew that nothing would be the same again. The ordinary rhythm of my life had shifted, broken open by something forbidden yet intoxicating. My thoughts raced over every glance, every touch, every word exchanged, and I realized that this story, this connection, was only beginning. That I didn't know what would come next or where this path would lead, but I knew one thing for certain. The line between right and wrong had blurred, and I was standing firmly on the edge, unable and unwilling to step back.